Right, so today's reading is Luke 2, 1-7, the birth of Jesus. In those days, Caesar Augusta issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was the governor of Syria, and everyone went down to their own town to register. So Jesus went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee, in Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to be registered with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. This is the word of the Lord. Okay, so let's start with humour. It's the 1st of August, 146 days to Christmas. That's just over 20 weeks. And to provide the irony of it, I've been blessed with a summer cold. So I've got a cold because I'm talking about winter. Yes, that's my fault. I shouldn't have done it. And I've got a brain fog, and if it comes out wrong, I apologise. But you're going to get what you're going to get. So, what are we talking about today? Well, we'll start with the first one, and that's hermeneutics. Oh, lovely long word. What does that mean? Well, I'm not really sure either. But it's actually got a very simple summary. It's the study of the Bible. Okay? So we're going to, yes, not quite, but it's close enough. I'm keeping it simple. That's a massive topic. So we're only going to zero in on a few underlying principles and see how they apply to today's passage. The first one is the principle of simplicity. Now, people love complicating the Bible, and there are some complicated bits in it. But the main thing to take is God speaks in order to be understood. He doesn't speak to confuse us. The Bible's there to help us, and you should look for the original meaning first. Yes, it might take you other places. Yes, other things may get added in. But it's first thing to look at is what does the passage actually mean to the author? Because the author wrote it. Yes, we have a canon of Scripture, which is all these books of the Bible put together in the Bible, but different authors wrote it. There's God's underlying spirit writing the whole thing. So the first thing we should look at is what the passage meant to the author. Passages are never written in a vacuum. So the words, well, we've already got the challenge of translation, whether it's from Hebrew to English or Greek to English, and that can bring many different things in. We've also got the challenge of culture. They lived in a different world. It was similar in many ways, but it was very different in others. So, in understanding the meaning, we have to look more closely. Now, that's the whole passage. It's probably a little bit fully there. But we should try and look and see what was really going on. Now, when we hear the Christmas story, we always think of this. Small Mary and Joseph in a stable, maybe snow lying around. Well, that's wrong. We very rarely get snow in the biblical times. But it's the Western view. It's the story you had at Nativity. It's what you get taught every year, and it's what you might have been in the school nativity play. But that's not really what's going on. Okay? I'll go back from that. We've got to look a little bit more at the passage. I'll start reading it through and we'll try and unpack some bits. In those days, Caesar Augusta issued a decree that a census should be taken in the entire Roman world, that the first census that took place in Quirinius was the governor of Syria, and everyone went to register their own town to register. Okay. For a start, that doesn't tell you that Christmas happens at 25th of December. That came later when the Romans hijacked it and put it on, so we don't actually know when Christmas occurred. That's the first strange thing. You do very occasionally get snow in Palestine, in Israel, but very rarely, and it's highly unlikely it was occurring at the time. So, okay, we don't know when Christmas really occurred. The next bit is Joseph went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, that's another name for Bethlehem, or they link the two, because he belonged to the house and line of David. Okay. But one of the bits we need to really understand from that, Joseph was known. This was his family home. He may not have been born there. We don't know. We don't know where Joseph was born. But we do know that this was his clan home. He was known there. He knew he fitted there. He wasn't an unknown person. Okay, that's going to be important. The next bit is we've rarely got to understand how important hospitality was in the Middle East. You were hospitable to the stranger. You opened your house to them. You shared your food with them. You were kind to the guest. So Joseph was returning to his own village, so he was known. He was also, you were kind to people. You offered them to let them come in. Okay. This doesn't quite fit with the story we have and picture of Christmas, but let's move on a tiny bit more. The rest of the passage. He was there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. Now, well, that's a first and interesting thing. While they were there, not the first night they arrived. So he was there for some time before the baby arrived, is a reasonable expectation. And then she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Now, this is the word for guest room. Katleium? I have no idea how you pronounce it in Greek. I've never studied it. Its literal translation is a place to stay, which is where people would reasonably take, a place to stay if you're traveling around, that's an inn. And that's where they're wrong. A better translation is guest room, which is what's the translation I used was there. But there is a Greek word for inn, a commercial inn where travelers would stay. Inns did exist in the biblical times, usually in major cities, and were used for merchants, for people who didn't want hospitality or couldn't fit into that hospitality. But that's not the word Luke uses. He uses this katleium, which literal translation is a place to stay. Okay, place to stay. So we're at Bethlehem. What is Bethlehem? Well, Bethlehem's the town and city of David, but it's about a place of 2,000 or 3,000 souls, maybe 100 houses, 3 or 4 major streets. It hasn't got any major inn. They didn't exist in those kind of places. But it had lots of houses. You made your own house out of mud and bricks, and that's what a Palestine house tended to look like. Not like the Roman villas. That's the wrong picture in your head. It's a single room with a front door you can bar, sometimes stairs up to a roof with an edge where you might sleep in the very hot weather. But usually inside, you would have a raised area where you'd sleep, and you'd have a lower space where you could let your animals in at night. There might be a few mangers, I'll come to them later. And you could bar the door at night, keep your animals and you safe. The animals gave extra warmth to the family room. During the day, you'd let them out. You slept in the higher area so you didn't get trampled at night. Okay? But that was a normal house. Now, if you had a bit more time and effort, and I'm not saying every house would be like this, but many would, you would have a room at the back. A katleium. Now that would be a guest room. A place that if someone came and you wished to give hospitality to, they could stay there. They didn't have to bunk in with you. The rest of the family stayed in the family. By the way, the stable in quotes is the lower area where the animals went, and they had feeding troughs in the higher edge, so they just were hollowed out areas. Okay? So that is a much more common, nicer version 2 of the family homes. And so what the passage is saying is there was no guest room available for them. All the guest rooms were full. More important people, people who got there first, we're not sure. But many of the houses would have had guest rooms. It wouldn't have just been 1 or 2. There would have been 10, 20, 30. Because Bethlehem would have been heaving, because everyone's gone to Bethlehem, because you've got to register there because of the census. Okay. But what does all of this mean? I've just gone back to that. Okay, no. What does all of this mean? We've changed our view from an inn, being chucked out the inn and go to the back. So our view is that Jesus, even when he was first born, was put out of society. He was on the edge of society. He wasn't wanted. He didn't fit in, so he was put at the stables at the back. And actually, if you understand the text and the passage and the context, it's turned it on its head. Jesus was born in the middle of a family room. Now, I'm not saying Mary was there with all the family around, but the point was, it was there and family was there. The baby would have been in the middle of a family. He's in the middle of with us. He was never separate. He was never out on the edge. He was never somewhere else. He was always there, right in the middle of us all. Okay, that might seem a strange change, or a small change, but I think it's quite fundamental for me. For me it is when I think about it. Because coming to application, I'm sorry if this is a bit short, but my brain fog's the best I can do. I always think Jesus is always with you. Right from the beginning, he was with you. He was with the family. He's next to you. Wherever you go, Jesus is next to you. So you're never alone. You take him wherever you go. You don't have to talk to him. He's the friend you can just be quiet with. He is willing to talk to you if you want to listen, or just be silent. But he's always with you by your side. Whenever we're doing the things we're happy about, and whenever we're doing things that maybe we shouldn't, he's still there. He still loves us. He's consistent. He was there at the beginning, and he'll be there at the end.